The courtroom erupts in tension as a mother stands accused, her hands trembling, eyes darting, weaving a story that doesn't add up. Judge Caprio's gaze pierces the fabrications, calm but unwavering, as the audience senses the imbalance, truth versus deceit. Gasps ripple through the room. Could this desperate lie hide a deeper truth, or is it a moral misstep that will cost everything? The moral stakes are immediate. Justice, compassion, and consequence collide. As whispers fill the room, every viewer wonders, what happens when the calmest authority confronts the storm of dishonesty? She steps into the courtroom like a storm barely contained, her heels clicking against the polished floor, echoing louder than her voice will in a moment. Every eye shifts toward her, the room instinctively leaning forward, sensing the friction in the air. She clutches her purse like a lifeline, her fingers trembling, betraying a nervous energy she tries desperately to mask. Her story, carefully rehearsed, flows in measured sentences, yet beneath the calm veneer, a subtle quiver betrays uncertainty. Whispers ripple through the gallery, some sympathetic, some skeptical, like the murmur of wind through dry leaves. Judge Caprio sits, still and unyielding, a figure of quiet authority. His eyes don't dart, they observe. Every twitch, every pause in her voice, every micro-expression is noted, weighed. The contrast is stark, her frantic energy against his unwavering calm. The courtroom feels smaller, the walls pressing in, tension coiling tighter with each word. "Your Honor," she begins, voice wavering just enough to sound human, I didn't know what else to do." Her hands shake as she gestures toward the documents she's brought. The clerk shifts uneasily, the bailiff clears his throat. Gasps rise in the audience as she recounts her version of events, each sentence punctuated with desperate hope. But even in her effort, subtle cracks appear, timelines that don't line up, gestures that contradict her words. A document dropped, papers rustling like whispers of doubt. Eyes follow her every movement, and murmurs rise. Could it be that she's hiding something? Judge Caprio's gaze is steady. He leans forward slightly, not to intimidate, but to see beyond the rehearsed narrative, to read the truth behind the performance. The courtroom hushes, a collective breath held. Observers notice it, the tilt of her head, the avoidance of eye contact when asked simple, factual questions. The moral tension thickens, compassion against suspicion, trust against instinct. She falters, a beat too long between words, and the room reacts. A subtle gasp, a shuffle, a whisper, tiny sounds, yet amplified in this charged silence. Every body language tells a story she cannot fully control. The energy swings, empathy for her evident fear, then unease at the inconsistencies. The audience is caught between her humanity and the gnawing sense of deception. Do you think she's telling the truth or hiding something? Judge Caprio's voice, calm, measured, cuts through the room. We must consider not only what is said but what is left unsaid. The words hang in the air, heavier than any accusation. The mother swallows hard, eyes glistening, as reality begins to press down, subtle yet undeniable. She's human, fallible, but is the truth buried under fear or under intent? The tension is electric, a quiet storm waiting to break, and the courtroom leans closer, collectively awaiting the moment when truth and compassion collide. The questioning begins with a rhythm as precise as a metronome. Judge Caprio's voice is calm, unhurried, yet every word carries weight. "Can you explain again the sequence of events that morning?" he asks, leaning forward slightly, eyes locked on her face. She swallows, hands tightening around the edges of her purse. Her answer comes, measured, rehearsed, but a hesitation flickers, like a shadow passing across a sunlit window. She repeats herself, subtly shifting details, looping back unnaturally, as if trying to catch her own story before it unravels. A faint murmur rises from the gallery. Observers exchange glances, eyebrows raised, whispers curling like smoke through the tense air. Some nod, convinced, others lean in, sensing the fault lines beneath her words. The courtroom holds its breath as Judge Caprio tilts his head, soft probing questions like gentle taps on a brittle surface. Each query exposes a tiny gap, timelines that don't align, gestures that contradict, moments that fail to reconcile with prior testimony. She fidgets, avoiding eye contact, a bead of sweat glinting along her temple. "Do you recall exactly when you called for help?" His tone is gentle, almost fatherly, yet unyielding. Her pride pushes back, voice rising slightly. "Yes. I thought it was around 9. The word "thought" hangs, a subtle crack in the facade. The room reacts, a gasp here, a shuffle there, the faint click of a pen dropped. The tension coils tighter. Fear and guilt begin their dance across her face. Pride battles shame as she stammers, each answer a tentative bridge over a widening chasm of doubt. Judge Caprio remains motionless, his calmness a counterweight to her rising agitation. Each pause is deliberate, an unspoken invitation for truth. His eyes trace every micro-expression, the tightening of her jaw, the downward cast of her gaze, the brief, almost imperceptible inhale before a lie slips through. He allows silence to stretch, letting the courtroom lean in, amplifying suspense. Spectators feel the emotional layers shift. Fear, pride, guilt, and the fragile hope that honesty might still surface. Would you remain calm or confront the lie directly? The question hovers in the charged air, unspoken yet palpable, a mirror held to the audience's own morality. She swallows hard, trembling beneath the weight of scrutiny, caught between the instinct to defend herself and the subtle moral gravity pressing down from the bench. The cracks widen, the suspense deepens, and every eye in the courtroom waits for the moment when the story can no longer hide the truth. The clerk approaches the bench, holding a stack of documents that seem heavier than their paperweight. Each page carries the weight of truth, evidence meticulously collected, ready to dismantle the carefully crafted story the mother has rehearsed. She watches, fingers clutching the edges of her chair, knuckles white. The courtroom leans in instinctively, the murmurs fade into a tense hush. Every eye is fixed on the documents as the first sheet is placed before Judge Caprio. He reviews each page slowly, deliberately, allowing the silence to amplify the impact. The room feels suspended in time. Every flip of a page is a drumbeat against her faltering narrative. The mother's composure, so carefully maintained until now, begins to crack. Her lips press together, she swallows, trembling imperceptibly. Shame flickers across her face, brief but undeniable, like lightning illuminating hidden truths. Observers sense it immediately. Whispers of doubt ripple through the gallery, exchanged glances full of anticipation and judgment. One document contradicts a key part of her story. Her eyes dart toward Judge Caprio, hoping for a reprieve, but his gaze remains steady, calm, unyielding. "Can you clarify this?" he asks softly, each word weighted with moral authority. Her voice quivers. I thought that. Maybe it was different." The uncertainty in her tone is a rupture in the dam of her confidence. The courtroom reacts, a stifled gasp, a shift in posture, a subtle exhale from a spectator. Tension spikes like a drawn bowstring, each heartbeat echoing in the silent spaces between words. A second piece of evidence is revealed, a photograph, time-stamped and unambiguous. Her throat tightens. The pride that once bolstered her falters, replaced by fear and the creeping realization that the truth is inexorable. Every whisper in the room grows louder, not in volume but in moral resonance. The audience senses the collision of human frailty and accountability. Her eyes well, a mixture of guilt and regret washing over her features. The moral gravity of the courtroom is palpable. Lies may protect in the short term, but truth demands confrontation. Judge Caprio allows the weight of the evidence to settle fully before him. His calm, measured presence contrasts with her growing despair. He does not raise his voice. He does not gesture wildly. Every micro-expression, every pause is a lesson. "We must all face our actions honestly," he intones, letting the courtroom absorb the gravity of that truth. The mother bows her head slightly, the facade crumbling, as her humanity begins to emerge amidst shame and recognition. Observers exchange glances, the emotional pendulum swinging from incredulity to empathy. Could you admit a lie under scrutiny? The question lingers in the charged air, unspoken but searing. Every document, every reaction, every heartbeat builds toward the moment when accountability can no longer be avoided. The courtroom waits, suspended between judgment and redemption, the moral lesson clear. Truth may demand courage, but it offers liberation where deception only binds. Judge Caprio leans forward, eyes steady, hands lightly resting on the bench. His voice, calm, measured, fills the courtroom, yet every word carries a weight that presses against the mother's carefully built composure. "Earlier, you stated the call was at 9. Yet the documents show it was nearly an hour later. Can you explain this discrepancy?" His question is soft, deliberate, a mirror reflecting her missteps. She swallows hard, fingers tightening around the edges of her purse, her voice trembling as she tries to navigate the tightening noose of truth. The courtroom reacts instantly. A collective gasp rises, followed by murmurs weaving through the spectators like a rising tide of tension. Whispers of doubt crescendo, eyes darting between her and the calm authority presiding over the room. Every pause she takes is amplified, the silence almost tangible, like the quiet before a storm. Her story falters under the gentle pressure, each word exposing another crack. Pride wavers, fear flickers across her eyes, and guilt begins its slow, inevitable crawl over her expression. Judge Caprio's gaze does not waver. He does not need to raise his voice. His presence alone carries moral weight. The timeline is critical, he continues, voice soft but unrelenting. And yet, details are shifting. How do you account for that? The mother's lips part, faltering. She glances at the documents, then back to the judge, realizing that evasion no longer shields her. Her composure fractures in slow, visible beats. Spectators shift in their seats, leaning closer, caught in the cinematic gravity of the moment. The moral tension hangs heavy, thick in the air, truth versus self-preservation, accountability versus fear. Every flicker of panic, every stumble of her words, contrasts with Judge Caprio's serene authority. The courtroom becomes a crucible of emotional extremes, where the human tendency to protect oneself collides with the impartial weight of justice. Even the officers remain still, watching, as the drama unfolds, every micro-expression magnified in the charged silence. Judge Caprio leans just slightly, his voice softening yet remaining unwavering. "You have a choice," he says, each word deliberate, carrying both compassion and expectation. "Acknowledge what is true, or face the consequences of omission." The mother's shoulders slump, eyes downcast, shame and realization washing over her. The spectators exhale collectively, the tension holding like a slow-burning fuse poised to ignite. What would you do if confronted this way? Pause, reflect on your instincts, your honesty, your courage. Here, in this courtroom, every heartbeat counts, and the choice between truth and self-preservation becomes a defining moral moment, leaving the audience suspended, waiting for her next move. The mother inhales sharply, shoulders trembling as the weight of the courtroom presses down upon her. Her fingers clutch the edge of the chair, knuckles white, a desperate attempt to anchor herself. All rehearsed defenses crumble in the face of undeniable evidence, the documents, the questioning, the relentless yet calm moral authority of Judge Caprio. She opens her mouth, voice quivering, as if each word is lifted from the deepest corner of her conscience. I wasn't completely honest," she admits, the words cracking, raw and unpolished. The silence that follows is deafening. Every head in the courtroom tilts toward her, every eye fixed on the fragile collapse of her carefully constructed facade. The spectators shift, some in disbelief, others leaning forward with empathy. Even the officers, the bailiffs, and the clerks hold their breath, the room suspended in the fragile balance between judgment and human understanding. Judge Caprio remains steady, his calm authority a stark contrast to the emotional storm before him. His eyes trace the arc of her confession, not with accusation, but with moral guidance. Acknowledging the truth, he says, voice soft yet compelling, is never a failure. It is the first step toward making things right. His words hang, allowing the mother's realization to sink in fully. Her eyes glisten with tears, shame and relief warring across her features. The courtroom responds subtly at first, an intake of breath, the shuffle of a chair, but soon murmurs of empathy ripple through the gallery. The tension, once taut like a drawn bowstring, begins to ease, replaced by a poignant reflection of human vulnerability. Spectators exchange glances, nodding at the courage it takes to admit fault, to face accountability, to embrace the uncomfortable truth. The emotional energy shifts, disbelief softens, moral clarity emerges, and compassion blends with accountability, crafting a human story both raw and instructive. Her confession becomes a lens through which the entire courtroom re-examines the narrative. What was once suspenseful now transforms into reflection. The mother's honesty reframes everything, the tension, the accusations, the stakes, ushering in a new rhythm of contemplation. Judge Caprio's calm gaze sweeps the room, reinforcing that justice is not solely punishment, but the recognition of human complexity, the chance to reconcile error with growth. How does admitting a lie change your perspective? Pause and consider the subtle power of truth, the weight of accountability, and the relief of confession. In this moment, justice is cinematic, not just in procedure but in the emotional cadence that moves from fear to humility, from guilt to redemption. Every heartbeat, every glance, every quiet whisper in the courtroom bears witness to the transformative power of honesty, leaving both the mother and the audience suspended in a profound moral reckoning. Judge Caprio leans back slightly, letting the silence settle over the courtroom. Every eye is fixed on him, every whisper has faded into a concentrated stillness. He speaks softly, deliberately, each word carrying the weight of experience, authority, and compassion. "Integrity is not about perfection," he begins, his gaze sweeping the room with calm precision. "It is about owning our choices, facing mistakes, and striving to do better." His tone is measured, not accusatory, yet it lands like a hammer striking a bell, clear, resonant, impossible to ignore. The mother listens, shoulders slumping as the gravity of his words penetrates the last defenses she had built around herself. Her eyes glisten, absorbing not just judgment but mercy. Each sentence presses gently, revealing the moral consequences of deception while highlighting the human capacity for redemption. The courtroom responds in kind, faces softened, murmurs replaced by focused attention, the audience collectively leaning into the moral lesson being unfolded. Every spectator feels it. Tension transforms into reflection, suspense dissolves into contemplation, and the energy in the room shifts. Judge Caprio's eyes meet hers again, steady and unwavering. "Responsibility is not a burden to fear," he continues, "but an opportunity to correct our course and regain trust." The mother exhales slowly, a tremor running through her hands as she clasps them in her lap. She nods subtly, acknowledging the truth she can no longer avoid. The courtroom watches this subtle transformation, the fragile intersection of accountability and compassion, like witnessing a flower open after a long, dark winter. He pauses, letting the words resonate, then adds, "Compassion is not weakness. It is the bridge between justice and humanity. To forgive, to understand, and to learn, these are the acts that define us." Each syllable carries cinematic weight. It is a lesson, a mirror, a quiet awakening. The mother bows her head, absorbing not only the moral clarity but also the path forward, one paved with honesty, courage, and empathy. The gallery remains hushed, reflecting on the full spectrum of authority that Judge Caprio embodies, firm, fair, and profoundly human. Could you handle this lesson with the same grace? Pause, reflect on your own integrity, your capacity for empathy, your willingness to confront your mistakes. Here, the courtroom becomes a theater of moral truth, each heartbeat echoing the profound impact of honesty, responsibility, and compassion. Every glance, every sigh, every quiet breath reinforces that justice is more than punishment. It is the human opportunity to learn, to grow, and to rise above our errors. The courtroom exhales collectively, the tension of hours dissolving into a subtle, almost tangible wave of emotion. Some spectators wipe away tears, faces softening as relief and empathy mingle. Others sit in stunned awe, absorbing the profound gravity of the moment. The mother shifts slightly in her seat, shoulders relaxing for the first time, yet the residue of shame lingers, a quiet reminder of the choices that brought her here. Her hands, once trembling, now rest limply in her lap, and she closes her eyes briefly, as if allowing herself to finally breathe under the weight of truth. Judge Caprio remains unmoved physically, yet his presence shapes the emotional tide. His calm authority frames the crescendo, a steady anchor amidst the swirling reactions. "Justice is not only about rules," he intones softly, "it is about understanding the human story behind each action." The courtroom absorbs this, eyes darting between the mother and the judge, the unspoken lesson settling over them like a warm, illuminating light. Murmurs of reflection replace prior whispers of doubt, a sense of shared humanity begins to take root. A ripple spreads through the room as individuals connect the dots of her journey. The arrogance, the exposure, the collapse, the confession. Every subtle glance, every intake of breath, every quiet nod of acknowledgement contributes to a collective reckoning. The mother's relief is visible, a fragile smile brushing her lips, yet it is tempered by the knowledge of the moral weight she now carries. It is a moment of catharsis, but not of absolution. The lessons are real, and they linger. Spectators lean forward instinctively, some whispering softly to neighbors, recounting the drama they have witnessed. The courtroom transforms from a chamber of confrontation to a theater of empathy, where the emotional lessons extend far beyond the bench. Judge Caprio's eyes sweep across the audience, silently reinforcing the idea that moral clarity and compassion are inseparable, that understanding the human condition is at the core of true justice. Have you ever felt this mix of guilt and relief? The question hangs in the charged air, inviting reflection. In this moment, every heartbeat counts, every subtle expression resonates, and the ripple of one lie, one confession, one lesson,
the gavel strikes
spreads
softly,
outward, signaling
touching
the
not
conclusion,
just those in the room,
yet its
but
echo
anyone who
lingers
can
like
pause,
the final note
reflect,
of a symphony.
and consider the complex
Judge
interplay
Caprio
of
leans
accountability,
forward slightly,
humanity,
eyes
and
steady,
moral growth.
voice calm,
The
but
audience
commanding.
is left suspended,
This court
emotionally
recognizes both
invested,
the weight of
pondering
accountability
how
and the
truth
power
and
of
empathy
redemption
can coexist
even in the gravest
each word
of
deliberate,
circumstances,
sinking deep into the minds of all present.
The mother, once trembling, now sits straighter, shoulders heavy with humility yet lifted by the clarity of her choices. Her eyes glisten, not with fear, but with a tentative spark of understanding, a recognition that honesty, even when painful, opens a path toward better decisions. The courtroom exhales collectively, the tension dissipating into a charged silence of reflection. Spectators lean back, some whispering softly to neighbors, others wiping away tears, all processing the journey they have just witnessed. The emotional pendulum swings one last time. Shock gives way to relief, arrogance to humility, fear to empathy. The mother rises, walking slowly toward the exit, each step deliberate, measured, symbolic of the transformation she carries. Her glance toward Judge Caprio is fleeting but profound, a silent acknowledgement of the moral guidance and compassion that shaped this moment. Officers, clerks, and the audience alike sit still for a heartbeat longer, suspended in the cinematic weight of human resilience. Gasps and murmurs fade, replaced by quiet contemplation. The documents, the confessions, the evidence, all now settled into their moral consequence, have left their imprint. Judge Caprio's gaze sweeps the room one final time, calm yet piercing, reinforcing the lesson that justice is not only rules and punishment, but the delicate balance of accountability and mercy, the ability to confront mistakes while embracing the possibility of growth. Outside the courtroom, the mother's steps echo like the final beat of a moral drum, a cadence of reflection that resonates far beyond these walls. Each spectator carries a fragment of a lesson, that truth, when faced honestly, reshapes lives, that compassion and justice are not adversaries but companions in the human journey. Eyes meet, nods are exchanged, and hearts are quietly moved. Share a moment when truth changed everything for you. Pause, reflect, and consider how honesty, even when uncomfortable, can transform relationships, decisions, and futures. If you believe no one is above the law, and that redemption is as powerful as accountability, subscribe to witness more stories where morality and humanity collide. The courtroom empties, yet the emotional imprint remains, lingering in the mind, echoing in the heart, a cinematic conclusion that resonates, teaches, and inspires.